All rise for the pledge.
Oh, that's right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Alvarez.
Here.
Councilman Cullen. Absent. Councilwoman Eckhart.
Here.
Councilwoman Hudak.
Here.
Supervisor Hay.
Here. Notations of exits in the front and the rear, electronic device, please put it on vibrate. First item on the agenda this evening is a work session discussion partner connection to the Blackberry Sewer District. Michael?
Should we shut the door to the audience? Do you mind, or I'll do it if you want? Okay.
Good evening, members of the board.
You can raise it up too. It should be on, I hope. Yep, good.
Okay. As you know, I represent Warren Parkner. We had previously submitted a petition to the town board to extend the Blackberry Sewer District to include Mr. Parkner's house. Missing from that petition was the map and the map, plan, and report, or the plan and report aspect. We've had that prepared. The report has been prepared by Bibbo Associates, as well as the proposed construction drawings, which we've submitted and requesting to be reviewed by the town. And if found acceptable, if you would consider extending the district to include Mr. Parkner, we would appreciate that.
Okay. Well, at this point in time, they were here once before. We have these plans. Do we forward those to the town engineer?
Town engineer.
He was just here today. I should get the plans.
I sent him a copy as well as
Does
to
he have
Levon when I made the submittal to the town board. So I know he does have a copy, but obviously you'd have to refer the matter to him for commencement of work.
Okay, so what, if he's already got it, what I'll do is I'll be in contact with him and see if anything can be put on for the next meeting. Now, Will, can we just, do we need another work session on this or just put it to resolution?
I think just put it to resolution. We've already had a public hearing on it, I believe.
We did.
Yeah, and it was just a matter of having the map plan and report being finalized. And we would look to the town engineer for a determination as to whether those drawings and the various documents go with it are sufficient to constitute the map plan and report.
Okay, so Michael, what I'll do tomorrow morning, I'll contact the town engineer. You've already provided that to him and just tell him we're gonna wait on his response to us to put it on the agenda. And Cherry's, let's see, it'll be on the December 7th or the December 21st meeting?
Okay,
We'll try
great.
for the 7th,
Fantastic. And
and if not the 21st, but I'll let you know.
if Mr. Fenton has comments, then we'll have our engineer respond as soon as we can.
Fine.
And I have just one quick question, I think. Have there been any changes that we should be aware about since the public hearing?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Certainly at the premises that they've remained status quo.
Okay, and do you remember roughly what month or when the public hearing was?
Yeah,
It was a long time ago.
6
I know.
months ago, at least.
No, I actually think it was December of last year.
Okay, yeah,
Really?
okay.
That long
Yeah.
ago?
That's
we,
why-
We did reappear in front of the zoning board recently to request the reinstatement of our variances. So there has been notice to the public as far as the request for the reinstatement. No one came out,
Right,
but December was when the public hearing was.
okay, it was December. And Will, that's not, I don't want to make you renotice it if there were, and I'll read through the minutes, but there's no reason then, even though it was about a year ago, to renotice this.
I wouldn't think so.
Okay,
Great.
all right,
Well, thank you very much.
thanks.
Okay, so I'll be in touch once I have that information.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, second item on the work session this evening, is discussion campus at Fields Corner. Gentlemen?
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor. My name is Daniel Richmond. I'm with the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz, and I'm pleased to be here before you this evening to present your board with a exciting proposal to amend the town code to allow the development of a logistics center as a use in the town of Southeast OP3 zoning district. As we will explain, the town zoning currently permits traditional distribution centers such as warehouses, but the evolution of online retail and other changes in technology and our economy warrant updating the town zoning code to allow use that is growing in importance and demand and is a proven job creator. With me this evening is Harvey Schulweiss, the property owner, or Peter Kirkpatrick, the owner's representative. With me here this evening, my right, are from John Meyer Consulting, Richard Pearson and Joe Saracino, my colleague Kate Roberts. By way of background, the OP3 district currently exists in the proximity to Route 312 interchange off I-84. Generally along Pugsley Road, if you want to go back to the previous slide, Pugsley Road, Field Corners, and Field Corners Road. Our client, Putnam Seabury, received a final approval in 2006 from the town planning board to subdivide and then re-subdivide that property, and the approved final subdivision plat was filed with the Putnam County Clerk in 2006 and created 143 residential lots. And if you go to the next one, you'll see there's also where, just to the lower, a proposed commercial lot. That subdivision remains valid, but our client is now considering advancing a proposal that would provide significant benefits to the town and the region. Logistics centers are essentially distribution centers, which in addition to the traditional function of warehouses, add in a number of additional valuable services, including handling, shipment, consolidation, repackaging, labeling, assembly, aggregation, management, and other similar activities for non-hazardous goods and materials. The town zoning code presently allows warehouses, but the code definition does not appear broad enough to cover the full range of uses contemplated for logistics centers, which again are a product of increased optimization of the chain of supply as a result, in particular of e-commerce and online retail. The town code defines warehouse as a building or structure used for storage or commercial, non-polluting or non-hazardous manufacturing activities, which again doesn't seem to go forward. Joe, if you could just go to the previous one. Logistics centers are currently in great demand in our society, including because of increased online retail. As you see in the zoning petition that we submitted to your board, there have been numerous articles, including recently in the New York Times, showing that these again are a proven boon to the economy, producing hundreds of thousands of jobs since the economic recovery began in 2010, adding workers at 4 times the rate of the overall job growth. They're highly desirable for the town, including because of the jobs they would create, taxes they would generate, the low demand on municipal services, including, to state the obvious, they don't produce any school children, limited environmental impact, including low demand for sewer and water. The town is well positioned to benefit from this trend. It's well within truck driving distance of multiple commercial centers throughout the Northeast, as well as being in close proximity to marketplaces with literally millions of potential end users. There's relatively little availability of warehouse space of this kind for rent in many metropolitan areas, which has led where land is at a premium. E-commerce companies in particular need these parcels to guarantee that they can quickly dispatch orders to the end users. Putnam County's location is convenient to the areas of employment centers in Westchester, Dutchess, and Orange counties, as well as Fairfield and Litchfield. Numerous commercial centers are in close proximity, including obviously White Plains, Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, New York City, as well as Greenwich, Stamford, and Waterbury, Connecticut. The campus property would be a particularly appropriate location for a logistics center. It's easily accessible, close to 684 and I-87, and is situated along Interstate 84, just directly off of exit 19. The site's location on the Route 312 interchange and Pugsley Road will allow for ample transportation access without disturbing local traffic, as JMC will explain. The development team has devoted a lot of thought to coming up with the zoning that works for the town. We're guided in significant part by New York State's development profile for warehouse distribution and logistics center sites. This was developed by New York State as part of their Build Now initiative to promote development and set the framework to allow municipalities to demonstrate to prospective businesses that they're ready for new development, jobs, and economic growth. We are proposing to allow logistics centers as a conditional use, which would allow the planning board, give them the authority to impose appropriate conditions on this use to ensure that it's appropriately conditioned. So in particular, we are proposing the first, you'll see, this is the definition. We're going to amend We are proposing to amend section 138(4)B of the zoning code to allow logistics center first as a defined term. Again, it would define, so going beyond just a simple warehouse definition of storage, which established that it not only includes storage, but distribution, handling, shipment, consolidation, repackaging, and the multiple activities that can go on in association with, again, getting goods from the retailer to the end user. Joe, if you go to the next page. We're also proposing that the logistics center would also be allowed to have associated office space. These uses typically require some management on site, as well as potentially retail space, and we would condition that would be no more than 2%. The idea is obviously that this would not be a retail center, but again, a logistics center that might allow for like a FedEx center for some people to be at the site and either pick up a package or have a good provided there for return.
Is there a percentage for the allocation of office space?
We are not proposing one.
No, but is there,
For office spaces are proposed.
I see 2% for retail. And
Right
you mentioned-
now,
Right, no,
I think
office
we-
would
Typically
be-
ancillary.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be
just
ancillary.
Whatever the logistics center would need for running their business. So it would be a limited office space within the building. It might be a mezzanine space within the structure, but that information is unknown at this time, how much it would be of each use. Yeah.
We put a cap on it. We're proposing a cap on the retail space, just to be clear that we're not proposing, again, a retail center, but again, that any retail component would be strictly accessory to the overall logistics center use.
And what does 2% equal? Square footage
2%,
wise?
20,000 square feet.
about 20,000 of what we're proposing about with 1,100,000 square feet.
20,000.
So it would be 20,000 square foot of retail.
Just when you, next one you write up, when you put 2%, just put that in there so they won't ask again.
Sure, that's just a quote of the
Yeah,
definition.
Not a
but
problem.
right.
Because I was going to ask what the number is, what does it mean?
I think now, just to be clear, that our, and Will probably knows better than I do, but I believe it right now, is it 80/20, Will, usually on our, in other zones for warehouse to office space?
Warehouse office, yes. They're talking about warehouse retail, though.
Right, right. No, I understand that, but
That's the office space question.
that's what right now,
I think 20% would be well beyond what we're.
okay, that's why I'm asking right now.
Yeah, again, the idea is not for this to be an office park, but for this to be a logistics center, but this might need some associated management office space.
Okay.
Make sure. In addition to the definition, we're also proposing to amend Article 10 of the zoning law, again, to incorporate a section allowing logistics centers as a conditional use. This would, in addition to the general framework applicable to all conditional uses, that give the planning board the ability to ensure that they're appropriately in harmony with their surrounding neighbors. We would set forth certain basic requirements that they be, for example, on lots of at least 25 acres. It would establish certain design guidelines, including that no commercial building to be used for a logistics center could be closer than 50 feet from the boundary of a residential zoning district, including appropriate landscaping requirements, including appropriate buffers from proximate uses. The other change we'd be doing is to amend the use table, attachment 5 to the zoning law, which would establish that at the permitted uses in the OP3. Again, we're proposing to allow logistics centers as a conditional use in the OP3 district. Finally, if you want to go, again, most of the property that is owned by Putnam Seabury is in the OP3 district. A certain percentage is in the rural commercial. We are proposing to extend the OP3 district to include part of the rural commercial. The property on the other side of Pugsley Road, we would leave as rural commercial. It's largely wetlands and would remain untouched. I will be handing this over to JMC shortly, but I think an important thing to note about this project is we are actually only proposing to develop about 20% of this property as part of this development. Again, allowing this use would promote several planning and economic goals, including set forth in the town's comprehensive plan, which includes seeking a diversified base of business and industry, strengthening the town's tax base, and providing employment opportunities for area residents while preserving the town's rural character and protecting the town's portion of the regional drinking supply. The development team has spent a lot of time over the past years studying how the logistics center can be located on the property in a sustainable manner, including, as I mentioned, leaving significant open space. I'm going to hand it over to JMC now to give you a better detail about what we're proposing, in particular on the OP3 district. If there are any
I just want to
questions.
ask,
Sure.
just to better identify for the public, if you could put your cursor down by New York 312, down below there, that identifies to the public where TerraVest is, okay? To your left, Home Depot.
No, that's
Go-
the proposed crossroads.
Crossroads would be
No,
in
no,
there.
no, I'm only going where there's buildings.
Right,
That's TerraVest.
and
Yes.
Home Depot.
Go across Home Depot, then the glass building, go to, glass building's right above it,
Yeah,
up,
That's
that's
the
the glass
glass
building,
building.
just so people know. And then when you go down, that's going toward Tilly Foster, and
Yes.
then point out Tilly Foster, there's Tilly Foster, just so people know where it's being located. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so that's the basic arrangement, and the subject development is within this light color here. And as Dan just mentioned, there's no development proposed on RC here. So here's the overall development plan. It's in a four-building arrangement. Here's Pugsley Road, Route 312. The glass building is just off the sheet up in this way, just to get your bearings on where you are. 84 is down here. So as the original project was, we had 312 here where we were proposing improvements, and then we were proposing to redevelop or reconstruct, I should say, Pugsley Road and then a portion of Barrett. So the first two buildings that would most likely be constructed are in this location with an access off of Pugsley Road here. I'll zoom in on these two buildings now. So building one is 261,320 square feet proposed. Building two is 173,775 square feet. And again, you'll see the access off of Pugsley Road, and here's Pugsley Road again. Parking is proposed in support of the, in both buildings, 104 for building one, 69 for building two. We also, because we're not sure of the tenant, we're proposing additional land bank parking spaces, which would be here. They're a little dashed in here. That's 72 for building one and 48 for building two. And that would give us some flexibility as far as different tenants may be requiring additional parking or less parking. So we are proposing some land banking. So the total spaces for building one is 176. Total spaces for building two is 117. Loading docks for the building are proposed right now at 39 for building one here, 52 for building two here. We have the loading docks located away from Pugsley Road on the back side of the property here. And trailer parking, 28 spaces for building two and 55 for building one. Utilities, generally, just give you a quick overview for that. We have, we're located in the watershed, and we have to pay particular attention to stormwater, of course, and we have a proposed stormwater management area here for building one. Supporting building two would be a stormwater management area there, and a septic field for both buildings, building one in this location and building two in this location. We do not have a sewage treatment plant proposed, unlike what was originally proposed for this development. We'll go over to talk about wells. There are two existing wells that supported the project, which we would use, supported the existing project, which we would use for this development, located here and here. And we would put a water tank here and a pump building here, and this water tank would support all four buildings. We can go over to building three, similar to what I just spoke about on buildings one and two. They're located off of Barrett Road here, which would be an extension of Barrett here, ending in a cul-de-sac. 145 parking spaces for building four, 128 for building three. I'll go over to square footage. Building three is proposed at 323,076 square feet. Building four is 366,404 square feet. Land bank, again, parking spaces, 89 for building three, 101 for building four. The loading dock, we again, showing along the building, 51 here for Building 3 and 70 for Building 4. We do have some neighboring residential properties here, so we did, on purpose, was to locate the loading docks on this side of the building away from the residential, so there really wouldn't be any active use of the property along this line, with the exception of just access around it.
Can I ask a question while you're there? You mentioned, this gentleman here mentioned early on about 50 feet from residential.
For the retail.
That any building would be at least, yes, we are proposing as part of the zoning that one of the restrictions would be that any building be at least 50 feet from a residential zoning district, which is that red line.
Okay, but there's an is that developable now or no? Do you know?
Sorry?
Is it developed already where that white thing is up in the right-hand corner?
Yes, that's the existing residential development.
So you're not really going to be 50 feet from a
We're going to be
residence,
much
but-
more than 50
That's
feet.
approximately 600 feet.
Okay,
Yeah, we're going to.
Is that Twin Brook Manor?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
okay, 600 feet, okay.
What are the proposed hours of operation then? Whether it be for the whole project, you know, like when the center would be open versus the retail?
We're proposing that they be 24/7, just to, correlate with the necessity of trucking. And I think as Rich will explain shortly, I think that's also going to assist in assuring that the project's traffic impacts don't unduly burden local roads.
That answer your question, Edvin? 24/7?
Thank you. Yep.
We did, in the plans that were submitted to the board, we did propose evergreen plantings. That's what these, a little hard to see, but evergreen plantings along this perimeter. And these plants in here are also evergreen plantings. So we were trying to assist in building the buffer between the project and the residential development here. The original development, I might note, did extend down into here, the housing development, generally into that area. So we're pulling it back. Okay. That's just the loading docks, 122 for Building 4, 113 for Building 3. Stormwater management areas, as I showed you in Building 1 and 2, here and here for Building 4, and here for Building 3. And septic areas for each building as well, and you can see these locations here. So based on that development, you saw the original slide which had a lot of residential subdivided lots on it. The way that we would revise the subdivision, that's why the application will be for site plan and subdivision approval. We ended up creating a lot for buildings 1 and 2. Buildings 3 was here, lot 2, and building 4 for lot 3. Building 5 here stays as is, as we mentioned before. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Richard Pearson. He'll go through some ridgeline analyses that we had done.
Could I ask a quick question before we move on to that? You mentioned tractor-trailer parking. What are you, which we consider when it's overnight outdoor storage? Do you have any figures in mind, any proposals for the amount of outdoor storage that will be?
So physical stacking of material?
Well,
Yeah.
there's that,
I don't
too. I
think,
mean-
we're not proposing any of that, I don't believe. It's
So it
not
would-
like Home Depot or something like that.
So it would be primarily then just overnight parking of?
For the trucks.
For
And
trucks.
what they would mostly do is they would bring the trailer in and drop the trailer and leave with the engine part of the vehicle,
Okay.
yeah.
Good evening, Richard Pearson. Relative to the ridge line, we have shown in orange the ridge line. That's the actual bottom of the ridge line. The ridge lines in your code is the upper 50 feet of these areas. So that's shown in orange. And next, actually, I could probably. Okay. What we've shown here in green is the existing tree lines. Much of this area was a former farm fields, so there's relatively few trees as compared to if this was just all wooded. And so with this, we would be obviously removing the trees where the proposed building and parking is, but much of the existing tree line within the ridge line would remain. And that's one of the criteria in your ordinance, it talks about the maximum number of trees that could be removed. We're having a tree survey updated now, but we believe we're going to be well below the criteria per your code. What we have here is a section line of the proposed building. So it's along that blue line is how you would look at the cross-section, which shows the buildings. So what we're proposing is to have, rather than locating the building on the top of the ridge line, we're going to lower the ridge line for these two buildings approximately 17 feet at the maximum point, and less in other locations. But by lowering the ridge line, it lessens the visibility of the buildings as compared to if the buildings were located on top of the ridge line. Similarly, for buildings 3 and 4, the ridge line boundary is shown in orange, and then we go on to the next, please, Joe. Yep, we have the trees, the existing trees shown there, and there's actually fewer trees for buildings 3 and 4, and it's mostly the former farm field areas. So the old farmhouse was right at off of Barrett Road, and Barrett Road's an unimproved road. As you drive down, most people don't even know that there is a paper street there. So similarly, we have the cross-section located through the top of the ridgeline, and we have a similar situation with the proposed buildings and the lowering of the grade and the upper portions of the ridgeline by approximately 19 feet to minimize the visibility. Yep. Moving on to traffic. We've completed a very detailed traffic study. We've been coordinating with your town consultants, AKRF, regarding the scope of the study and other developments that we're considering. We've also been coordinating with the New York State Department of Transportation regarding the traffic study, as well as the improvements that we're proposing as part of this application. So we looked at these 6 intersections. We looked at it weekday mornings, weekday afternoons, as well as Saturday midday. Go on to the next, please. These are proposed improvements at the Pugsley Road Route 312 intersection. They're very similar to what we had previously had virtually approved by the state in association with the residential development, except that we're proposing an additional improvement here. So we are widening Route 312 to provide a left turn lane along Route 312 onto Pugsley Road, and we're also widening to provide a right turn lane for vehicles coming to our site. There's a very large radius proposed for that intersection so that the trucks can make their turns without impacting any of the other traffic. Along these lines, we're going to be working with the town, hopefully in requesting a modification with the State Department of Transportation to allow trucks to use more of Pugsley Road than they otherwise would be. There's the state looks to have trucks within a mile of certain roads being permitted, and if there's a request to have the trucks go along another road, it's a process that the state has, and they've granted it many locations throughout the state, and we are aware of the criteria that they look for, and once Pugsley Road is improved, we would satisfy that criteria. So continuing on the improvements that we're proposing, we would be widening Pugsley Road to have 2 lanes. It would be a left turn lane and a shared left-right lane. Most of our traffic would be coming to and from 84 along 312, and so what we're trying to do is minimize the amount of green time for a traffic signal that we will be proposing. The previous residential development did not have a traffic signal associated with the improvements, and it had single left and right turn lanes. We're providing 2 receiving lanes on Route 312 for the double left turns, and then that would taper back down to the single lane that exists, and as mentioned, we would be having a traffic signal. We'll be working with the state, again, to continue during the review of this application, and actually we'll be meeting with the state next week about this project.
How far, to the bottom, I know that's North? I can't tell north, south, east.
Yeah, actually, I apologize. North is to the right, essentially.
Okay. So from that area there where you have the widening, how
Yeah.
far is that from the actual light going to the Home Depot area? Do you have any idea?
It's, I believe it's about a half a
Where-
mile.
Where's a glass building compared to
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
So the white is where it is now?
Yeah, I think it's about 3/10 of a mile.
Okay.
Right.
You
Right.
know, just looking at that just quickly,
Yep.
because it widens up quite a bit when you get to the glass building.
hmm
If you extended that a little bit more, I think it'd be a lot better, because then you'd have, wider lanes going there. There's not a lot to be done there, but it'd be, I think, a lot better, because you're gonna go from, I don't know, 6 or 8 lanes in front of Home Depot, you're gonna come down to this area here, and then you're gonna go into 2 lanes real quick. So if you brought it up a little bit further, I think that'd be a big help.
We'll look into that.
And also, while we're on it, our neighbors to the north, Patterson, I had suggested this once before, with the improvement to Bugsley,
Right.
it's not a heavily trafficked road now, but if this goes in, it'll become one of the better maintained roads probably in the town, because you're gonna provide the initial. And just make them aware that this is going on as an interested party.
Right. We will discuss with the town of Patterson. We are proposing to improve about 2/10 of a mile of current gravel road that would be paved with our project. It's about another 3/4 of a mile of existing gravel road that would remain gravel road as you go up towards Fair Street. I used to live off of Fair Street in Lake Carmel for 12 years, so.
Because
I'm
right
familiar
now,
with the
that
area.
road is, that road, Bugsley, is a seasonal road, so it's gonna go from
Correct.
seasonal to pretty heavily traveled, at least to your area.
Right.
More people from Patterson will be using that road as well, just.
Right,
Mike,
right. As far as our understanding, it would still be seasonal north of our area, but, it's up to you.
Would you?
No, I was going to say, I would think it would stay seasonal. Mike would make that decision, though.
Yeah.
Say that again?
The part that's not gonna be widened and paved by this
Right.
applicant would still remain seasonal.
Yeah.
Right, we'd be fine with that.
But,
Right, right,
Yep.
right. From there, that would remain the
Right.
seasonal, and it's a gravel road from that point where we're realigning essentially. Right now, Barrett and Zimmer Road are offset. They're both dirt roads, but they're offset. So we're improving the alignment through there to take out that curve to bring us up to Barrett. But from there, where our improvements tie into existing, there's 3/4 of a mile of dirt road, yeah, up towards Fair Street.
okay, thank you.
All right, so what we did to help the board visualize things coming down 84, just to see any potential visual impacts, we prepared a video, and it's going to start, we have eastbound and we have a westbound video, so we can show the board what that looks like. We also show what it looks like coming down 312 and turning up Pugsley. So we can show that to you now so you can see what that looks like. So basically, the first one I'm going to show you is starting in that location, heading east. And it will be, that's the travel path. And we are going to show the initial one with winter, fall condition with leaves off the trees. Okay? So it'll start up, I think. Here we go. So we're heading east. The project site is over here on this side. And I will tell you when you can start to see it. You can see an existing warehouse on the other side of the road here, and you'll see the retail area starting to show here. I believe
is the
that's
Home
the
Depot.
Kohl's building or one of the retail buildings here. We're over here on the right. Can't see it yet. You see a little glimpse of it coming up. Yeah, right here. There you can see the top of the roof of, I believe that might be building number 1. And then you lose sight of it. And again, just to get your bearings, that's the retail project here. This is another project on the north side of the road.
That's Terravest side.
Yes, Terravest, yeah.
Is there a road off of 80? Oh, that's, okay, yeah. That's for police turnaround.
Right.
And you guys are going faster than 65 too, by the way.
No, we're going 65. We're following the speed limit. We're coming up to the end of this one soon. And this is based on actual grades and roads, topography of the area. It's accurate. It's accurate. The trees were picked up as they are, the correct heights and everything. Again, that's the retail project. You can, no, I believe that's it. So you only saw it in that one spot. Okay, we'll go to the next one, which is going to be starting basically at the overpass here. And it'll be heading west in this direction. This side of the road is elevated as opposed to the east side, and we'll see the result of this. So we start out there at the overpass, and you do start to see, you see the project, here it is, off to the left. We just traveled down this side of the road before. But the difference between this and, say, the retail project heading the other direction, these buildings are parallel to 84, so they're not in your direct line of sight in front of you. So it's a little different situation as opposed to where Home Depot and Kohl's is.
So would they would not show before that overpass?
No, you don't see it because it dips down.
Okay,
Yeah, the grade dips down, and right when you're coming up to the overpass is where you can get a picture
Okay.
of it. And that was basically it. You see it in that one spot, but we'll keep going. The next one I can show you is the with the trees on. You can go right to that. With the leaves on, I should say. I only did the west one because you really couldn't see it headed east. So the leaves on, here we are, going west. There you go. You see a little bit right here at the top of it. And that is about right there again, but not much. And this would be half the year, a little bit more than half the year when the leaves are on. But we did want to show the board both with leaves on and off because that's a typical question that we get. It's only right to do that. So, and that's basically it.
No, do 312.
You want to do? Oh yeah, that's right. All right, we'll go right to that. Here's starting location on 312. Leaves off 312. You really don't see it at all. We are set back quite a distance from 312. We're going to turn down Pugsley here. Here's that wide stripe area that Rich mentioned. And we're going to come up Pugsley. And here you start picking it up. And it would be a typical logistics center. We do have some plantings up on the top. It's a little hard to see. We have evergreen plantings here. And we didn't go any further because it's all basically the same right there.
Good.
what are the heights of the buildings?
It's 39 feet to the roof, and to the top of the highest parapets, it's just under 44 feet.
So they would need variance?
No, it would be 45 feet is
what
permitted
you're-
within the current zone, and
Okay.
but we're asking for the portion to be requested.
Okay, and you said, that are they, to minimize the views of these, are they being set into the ground more? Is that what you're proposing?
Yes, we're essentially taking off 17 to 19 feet of the highest point of the knoll on the ridge line, and so effectively, it's 25 feet above the current highest point, right.
So you weren't proposing lowering the ridge line, you're lowering the buildings, it's just to be clear.
No,
from the-
we're lowering the crest of the ridge line
Okay, lowering.
by between 17 and 19 feet. Rather than placing the building at the elevation of the highest point of the ridge line.
Okay. Also, to be clear to the public, the length of the trucks that we had spoken about, is it 53 feet?
53-foot trailers.
So right now, 40 feet is not a problem, but if you want to do the larger, are those the tandem? I mean, are
No,
they-
not the tandem. These are typical trucks you see all up and down 84 and 684. The Target trucks, the Walmart trucks, they're all 53-foot trailers. Almost all the trucks you see at the rest stop on 684 have 53-foot trailers.
And so that the public understands, and it would give me a better perception, are you familiar with the Gap warehouse, kind of everybody is? And
Yes.
how would that compare in size to any of these buildings?
One of the Gap buildings is as large as all 4 of our buildings.
One of the Gap is,
Yeah.
say it
I
again?
believe one of the Gap buildings, the one that's immediately along 84, is 1 million square feet. And we're
Okay.
proposing 1.1 million square feet
That's-
for all, the total of all
Okay, so
4.
that would be, okay.
Right,
So it'd be a total of 1 million square feet, but in 4 different buildings,
correct.
right? Okay.
Much farther away from I-84.
Right, you wouldn't be driving down into it, you'd be looking up at it, so.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just, again, if shovel-ready, so to speak, how long do you anticipate it would take to do this?
Well, let's start with how long do we anticipate the process for approval might be?
Yeah, well,
Well, I mean, we would like to discuss with your
Assuming
board this,
everything worked
this
out.
evening to, initiate the process. I don't know.
Well, the process from tonight, we're going to refer you down to the Southeast Planning Board,
Right.
where that process begins.
Okay. And I think we are, we have already simultaneously submitted an application to the planning board for a conditional use permit that would be simultaneously considered. I think we're hopeful to be on their November 27th agenda.
Hey, when I asked a question at the work session that we had with them, and basically, they're gonna build one building, as they get tenants, they're gonna build it out, so it could take 2 years, 3 years, if they're lucky, they might get it done even sooner.
Which buildings would you be building first?
It would be tenant-driven,
Right.
depending on which buildings the tenants were interested in.
So you really don't have any range of income at this point, then? You could, I see there are about 666 jobs that are projected, but you wouldn't be able to tell us any kind of range of incomes that would,
Yeah, no, I don't think we,
How many jobs?
666, is that
Can you
correct?
change that to
Yep.
667?
Yeah, right?
No, 665,
Yeah, round out, one way or the other.
round down,
Okay.
but,
I think what's nice is, right now, what you're representing is the property taxes are 141,616. And obviously this should give us a lot more than $146,616.
yes, with very little demand on municipal services, particularly compared to the residential subdivision that was being proposed,
And the schools.
and schools.
and the maximum retail, as you said, would be 2%?
That's what we're proposing.
Okay, all right.
And again, it's not, the idea is not for this to be a retail center at all, but just for like if you have a FedEx drop center where you can pick up a package, drop off a package, maybe buy some shipping materials.
Okay. Well, I'm sure the public will have lots of questions when they're, for the public hearings.
We're looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, and you said you already made a simultaneous application to the planning board,
Yes,
so it goes to their hands next.
great.
Okay, thank you for your presentation.
Very good, thank you.
very
it's a great presentation, one
Thank
of
you
the
very
better
much.
ones.
Appreciate it.
We're going to continue our meeting, don't worry about making noise, because you don't make much anyway, so,
I'm going to turn off this microphone.
okay,
Yes.
thank you. Okay. Item number 3, discussion revised chapter 60, article 2, dogs. Lynn, you're going to take this over as of tonight?
Well, I am, but this was Bob's, just so that I don't look totally disorganized, this was not my baby, so to speak. Bob was handling this, but he was unable to make it tonight. So there's been some discussion about our dog ordinance, and it being not humane enough as far as keeping dogs on the different properties now, keeping dogs outdoors. I think tonight what would be best, Bob did, we did a lot of homework about neighboring towns. Very few offer many specifics at all for this. about shelter conditions. Fishkill does, City of Beacon does, LaGrange, Patterson, and Putnam Valley. But I think 8 towns up in Dutchess, and I think there are all of Putnam, and then there are, I think, 6 towns or so that were done in Westchester. So we've really, I think, looked into it. Since Bob isn't here, I would think this might be a good time to hear from the public, to hear what they're looking for.
Well,
as far as-
I think we've already heard kind of what they're looking for. They made it,
Right.
some presentation previously. I just don't want to keep drawing the people out. And
No, I don't either, but,
And do nothing. I mean.
no, I know.
I mean,
we
they
can-
pretty much, I mean, they can speak tonight, identify, but the next meeting, we have to have something more concrete to actually discuss and just say, well, this, and this.
Right.
Someone has to put together some kind of a package based on what they're recommending and put something forward, just to talk is.
No, I understand, and I think I'm pretty clear on what people would like, but I think it would be good to hear from residents, and then I agree, I don't know whether Bob will still be willing to take the lead on this and put this together, or how you want to proceed, that's all.
Well, why don't you both do it for now, because at some point in time, you'll take it over.
Okay.
But again, I just don't want to keep
No, I
bringing
know.
people out, and, I mean, there's a lot of paper there. When I saw there were 60 pages, and I
Yeah.
just got it today, I mean, I didn't have time to look at it.
Oh, it was just the different towns.
Yeah, but you want to
how
read
they
it to have a
handled
better
it.
understanding. Someone's got to
Yes.
collate those ideas into discussion points for the board.
Right, and I think what's really important here is to understand that this is going to come down to an enforcement issue, too. I mean, it is not, it's not easy, it's not going to be easy, and it's a heavy lift to enforce some of the things that I think might be done, that the public might want to be done. But I think if we could hear from them tonight, they're out for this. And then I agree with you, I think we need to put something concrete together, go, have one more work session, put it on as a public hearing and get it moving.
Well, have at least another work session with
Yes.
something concrete going forward for purpose of a public hearing,
Right.
and then move from there.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone from the public there wishing to speak on this?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Eileen McDermott. I think you've seen some of my emails. This all originated because last year it came to my attention. I just moved to Brewster last year, and a neighbor of mine keeps his dogs out year-round, and all through the winter last year, these dogs were out on very short chains, and it became clear pretty quickly that he was fully within the law. And after speaking to all of the relevant authorities involved, it became clear that we just need to do something more with the law itself. And as far as concrete ideas, I think we have a lot of them. There's a couple of codes that do have humane treatment and cruelty provisions in them, and there's language there. It's not sufficient. I think I don't know why we need to look to other codes to be the model. Why don't we be the model? Because, there are other state laws and county laws that have very specific language about temperatures at which dogs should not be outside. And I think that it would be pretty easy to put a provision into the code that deals with this. And, I know that there's a concern about enforcement of this, but, and I don't know, is Ken from the SPCA here? I don't know if he deals with enforcement anyway, but, I don't understand why that's really an issue, because there's a lot of issues that are hard to enforce. Child abuse is hard to enforce, but we still have laws, strong laws for it, because you need to have a strong law, and then when you can enforce it, you do. So, to me, there's Pennsylvania just passed a state law, and I think someone else that's here has samples, maybe to hand out, with that language that has very specific temperatures and is very clear on what needs to be included in order to ensure that, it's just not, all of the town codes that I've read, I've researched them, they're concerned about keeping people safe from dogs. But obviously, in more cases, it's more often the case that dogs need to be kept safe from people. And I think that there's no reason that there shouldn't be, New York state law is way too broad. It has provisions in there, and you could argue that in this particular instance that where this all originated from, that this person is in violation of state law, but the law is too broad to really say that for sure, and so the code needs to say more. I just think I think this needs to be handled quickly because it's winter again. These dogs are still outside, and, I understand that he is within the current law, and there's not much that can be done, and, they do have shelters, but a doghouse has an opening, and it's not sufficient for the temperatures that we get up here. And they're also on very short chains. There should be language about tethering dogs and about, dogs can't be on short tethers. There's no reason to not have a provision for humane treatment or cruelty language, because all of us, there are a lot of people here. I had 101 people sign a petition, and a lot of people consider their dogs family and want them to be treated and protected like their children. So I don't think that there's any reason to not quickly add some kind of language that will help with this issue.
Before you leave tonight, would you mind giving your name and a phone number to?
We've met.
Sure, yeah.
Then fine, because again, you're knowledgeable and can help expedite it maybe.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there are other people here tonight, and there are a lot of people that are talking about this and are concerned with it. So, I would just really like to see, we're happy to help, unless that's going to delay the process.
No, it's not going to delay it, it's just that we need something to put on the table to truly discuss.
All right, well, we have some stuff to give you, and, it's all very easily accessible,
Eileen,
but.
would you like, and I understand that we don't have to just take something from someone else's, and we can change whatever we do, but did you, for example, Patterson's humane treatment of animals, I think we briefly touched on.
Patterson has a humane treatment provision.
Yes.
It doesn't really say that much, but.
Right.
I think the Putnam Valley one, did you?
Well, that was on the tethers.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, it's not only on the tethers.
Right, but-
It's also on, as far as talking about on, let's see, so you have your definitions, and you have as a definition, a shelter. So that's,
Right.
it's adequate protection from extreme weather conditions, direct intense sunlight, wind, rain, or snow, and which is kept dry, sanitary, and properly maintained. Then you have your tether, and then you have premises and standards of care for keeping dogs. That's section 51.8. All premises occupied or used by dogs shall be kept in a clean, sanitary condition. Failure to provide proper food, fresh water, or adequate shelter from the elements of nature shall be a violation of, and an animal may be seized in accordance with the provisions. And then they have the seizures and the fees, and, Putnam
Sorry, which
Valley-
code is this?
Pardon me?
Which code is this again?
This is Putnam Valley.
Putnam Valley?
Putnam
Yeah,
Valley
but-
has
That was the one they handed in originally.
Yeah, I'm just saying that this is.
It's better, yeah, it says a lot more, but I think, our current code and the state law says something about shelter. It's just, if you're not specific, then, this guy has shelter for the dogs, but they're also on short tethers 24 hours a day, and that's not a quality of life for a dog. A dog needs to explore and be off leash at some point and get out of the area in which it does everything else. That's not, the dogs might as well be euthanized. There's no quality of life there whatsoever. So I think that the code needs to be specific on what is sufficient.
I think part of why we look towards other town codes is because we have to be careful that legislation is crafted in such a way that it won't be declared unconstitutional or result in us doing something that can't be enforced.
Right.
Enforceability is what really is at the heart of a statute, because if something can't be enforced, then who cares? And I say that meaning, that's what you need. So
Right.
when we're speaking about looking at other towns, because these are statutes that have hopefully been tested, they're there. You can see when they were adopted, some of these were adopted in 1982.
Yeah.
The Putt Valley. So that's why we look to it. It's sort of like, if you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and that's fine. I understand that the Southeast Code doesn't really address a lot of, I'm not gonna say a lot, but let's just say what you're speaking about. In other words, what you're saying is, you know, I get it, you know, most of the codes say we don't want the dogs to jump on us or bark or,
Right.
you know, or create a nuisance, but none of them really protect the animal itself.
Yeah.
So, but I think
Right.
Putt Valley appears
Yeah,
to
and I mean, if you do need models, then there are other codes that you can look to. I just think that, you know, it would be great to add some kind of language about temperature. And, you know, we get very, very cold winters up here, and neighbors can report that easily if there's a dog out in 20-degree weather, you know, and then it's I mean, it's not like this is going to mean that people have to be out scouring for all the time for dogs that are left out. I mean, neighbors will be reporting this stuff. They already are, and they're frustrated because nothing can be done because under the current code and the state law, there's not much. I mean, there are other levels of this as well. I think the state law should be improved, but, you know, this is a way to start, someplace to start, and I think that there's definitely a need to improve the language in the code and specifically add a new section on humane treatment.
No, I agree. I mean, our code doesn't have that. And, you know,
Yep.
definitely not as specific as what it can be.
Yeah. I mean, can we hear from other people? Thank you very much, and thank you for considering this.
I'm just going to give you these for more ideas, and if you want to have a few of us get together like we discussed at the last. I mean, I don't want to draw it out, like Tony says, and
Right.
just keep beating a dead horse here, but
Bad.
it's dead. Listen,
Beating
you
a
have a
dead
dog,
horse.
you better have a dog. You don't get anyone from the Putnam Humane Society. But we should. We need to just address the code, and we have to have, we have to have the wording that we need, and we could have a,
Don't take away from Will's job, come on.
What's that?
Don't take away from Will's job.
Oh, sorry, Bill, okay. So Lisa Tremblay, maybe we could, I mean, is forming a committee to meet and get this done and over with and then have a public hearing something that we should be doing, or is that?
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean, we
is
could,
it going to take too much time? Would you rather do it yourself? Do you want the veterinarian that was here the last time to be on that? I'm not sure what the right way.
I have no problem doing this rather quickly, and I have no problem with committees, but we all know what happens with committees. On
Yeah.
the other hand,
Go
I'm
on
not
and on and
interested
on.
in drawing something up and then having everyone go, that doesn't even work, that
Right.
doesn't work, because they're not, I mean, there aren't, and it doesn't matter to me whether there are 100 people here or 3 people here. That's not the point. If you can get together, and I can meet with you during the week, you
Yeah.
can get together a small committee, draft something that is going to, you know, that's going to pass muster, hopefully, and please as many people as we can, that would expedite things, and that's fine with me. And we can do it as soon as, you know, I know the holiday's coming up, but I
I
have free
know.
time. But I have free time next week. I can, whatever
Okay.
you would like
I
to do.
know, I don't know why, I thought Ken was supposed to be here tonight.
Who?
Ken Ross
He-
from SPCA? Yeah.
Bob told me he was going to be, but he's
Okay.
not, so.
I don't know. But I think I can get a veterinarian, Maria Logano, maybe
Okay.
somebody else, I'm not sure.
I mean, if you'd like to be in charge and put a small group together and then call me, that's, we
Okay.
can set up a time and meet and get this done. I have no time constraints as far as getting it done quickly.
Now, can you get something done? Our next meeting is Thursday, December 7th. If you can come forward with something between all of you, that's something that you think will fly amongst yourselves.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not gonna say that we're easy, but I mean,
Right, right.
you are more the experts on it. I don't have a dog. I don't know if anyone else does, but not that you have to have one. Common sense will tell you a lot of these things will work.
But
So
if
if you
you're
get here
not
for
an
November-
animal lover, Tony, you don't get it. I hate to tell you. No, I'm only kidding. Oh,
Okay.
When you
well,
say
it's
that,
true.
Tony, what do you mean come up with something, like
Well, they gotta come, in other words, we have to.
suggested law?
I mean, there was suggested early on,
Right.
come
Right.
forward for December 7th, have something we can discuss.
Okay.
Then we can set a public hearing based on whatever we do that evening, which would be December 21st, okay? and then it can be voted on the first meeting in January,
Okay.
which would be January 1st.
Did the town attorney work with us on the language? I mean, the language is pretty, like, legal.
Well, yeah, if you provide, if
We
you,
could just give you like the general idea. and
we
then-
would try to write it up, so
Yes.
we don't have to, I mean, he's great with what he does, but we have to try to help him along, because he's got
Right.
tons of other things to do.
And that's where other town codes
That's
are.
exactly why other town
Going
codes
to
are
come
very
in.
helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think what you just handed us, the WKBN 27,
Yep.
it has down here, but there are links
Yep.
where you have the third, according to the law, dog
Yeah, and I
cannot be.
couldn't print you 54 pages.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying
I have
that
the exact language for the, I mean, this is just.
for longer than 30 minutes in temperatures above 90 or below 32
Right.
degrees. I mean, that's, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's pushing it. I don't think you're going to be able to enforce that anyway, so.
And that's for all of Pennsylvania, correct?
Yeah, that's all
So
of
is this-
Pennsylvania.
Right.
Which is
This
it?
is Pennsylvania.
This is the
but
one.
like you
I
say,
got
if it's
Okay.
in there, it's the enforcement, at least
Right.
it's there.
Right.
if needed.
And honestly, if you look into the New York code, where, what I gave you,
Can I keep
they're
this?
saying that the local county SPCA is supposed to enforce this. But then you look at, two guys who are great, but, Putnam County is big. You've got, Cold Spring on one side and, town of Southeast on the other. So they're policing all over. I mean, I don't know.
Okay,
it's
so
a start.
December 7th, you come up with some
Right.
wording to
So
discuss,
do you have my contact information?
I don't. I'll-
Well, why don't I give it to you right
Yep.
now?
and then we'll set, after your, whatever we have that evening, make it concrete enough that we can put it forward to a public hearing on the 21st, and we
Okay.
can vote on it in our organizational on, I think, the 4th of January.
Okay.
Um, Here you go.
And obviously, we got to bounce it off of Willis,
Right.
Yeah, but he's got
the
time.
town attorney.
See if and just call me and then I can send you my email and all of that. Or you can use my email that's right on the website. Okay, whichever's easier for you. But, yeah, if we can get a small group together, we'll meet, put together the particulars, and then hopefully Willis can help craft something for us.
Okay. All right, great, thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the issue? On this issue, yes? Pardon?
Not on this issue.
Okay. Okay, I make a motion now to go into the regular portion of the meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number one is the correspondence, waive the reading of that. Number two is approval of the voucher list, $1,231,926.80. So move for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Setting of meeting dates and public hearings. All meetings will be held at 1360 Route 22, Brewster, New York, at 7 PM unless otherwise noted. Next meeting will be Thursday, December 7th, 2017, and Thursday, December 21st, 2017. So move for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Number four, transfers, budget transfers, waive the reading of it. So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, 5A through 5C, Bear Hill is being deferred until the December 7th meeting. Okay, there's no need for a motion, right? We'll just defer it?
No, I think you can do that.
Okay.
I think the chair can defer.
Okay, deferred, 5 through 5C. Okay, number 6, resolution on farmers markets. Hold on.
I should say, actually, the chair can defer without objection.
Whoa, great. Anybody object anyway? No.
No.
Okay, we got a lot of stuff here. By the way, guys, can you take all your 5 A, B, Cs, and Ds and give it to me again so I can save some paper?
Yeah, of course.
Hold on.
I'll just take it at the end of the meeting, but that'll be helpful. I'll just put it in the next package. I'll make it so it's number 5 on the agenda. Okay. I'm bad, I know. Okay. Number 6. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Southeast hereby adopts local law number 9 of 2017, which would enact a new chapter of the Code of the Town of Southeast entitled Farmers Markets to regulate the holding of seasonal farmers markets on certain properties within the town, establish a mechanism for filing and granting permits to hold farmers markets, establish certain minimum standards for properties used to hold farmers markets, and impose penalties for failure to lawfully abide by said minimum standards and organizational regulations. And be further resolved that the town clerk be and is hereby authorized and directed to A, enter said local law in the minutes of the meeting and in the code book of the town of Southeast, and B, give due notice of the adoption of said local law by filing such with the Secretary of State of New York within the time required by law. So move for discussion.
Second.
Just a brief discussion on the matter. When, in our organizational, I've worked up some numbers, and we could just briefly explain to you. Where did I put the numbers? Okay. The fees will be not in the resolution, it'll be as part of our fee schedule. And I've come up with a number. Again, they don't make a lot of money in farmers markets. It'll be $25 a month. So if someone's in business for 5 months, 6 months, it's $25 a month, which would be $300 for a year, which I don't think is unreasonable. And not-for-profits would be exempt. That's what's going to be put into the code for next year. Okay, on the motion itself,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's see. Where did this part come from? This, 1 second. What's this piece?
It goes on the top. It's 5.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, so just clip it.
Yeah, I just saw something extra. I had a nice clip and no clip. Okay, there we go.
Just note for the record that I have given over my 5A.
She will not be penalized
Thank
for
you
the
very
extra
much.
paper use?
There you go.
I'm not, I've already marked mine up, so I'm keeping it myself.
You got the whole thing?
Yeah, I'll,
Everything? Okay.
I say 25 cents a copy. Thank you.
I agree.
Sorry.
Okay, anyway.
it's marked, what can I tell you?
Number 7 is resolution for town budget. Resolved that the town clerk is authorized and directed to cause a copy of the 2018 annual budget as adopted to be published on the town's website, and that sufficient copies therefore be made available in the town clerk's office for public inspection. So move for discussion.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to explain what my vote is going to be. I think everyone knows that initially the proposal was made by Tony to exceed the tax cap. I stated at that time that I would not vote for exceeding the tax cap, that we had to take a hard look at the budget. We did take a hard look at the budget. We took a hard look at many aspects of it. It was then discovered and confirmed that the garbage costs would not be included in the budget. As a result, the garbage costs are now outside of the budget, so we're not exceeding the tax cap for that reason. The truth is, we're not exceeding an adjusted tax cap. We still have an increase in taxes based on the fact that the tax cap is a certain percentage, which we basically in this budget aim for that. So when I looked at the budget, there were numerous lines that had additional sums of money in the lines, which historically, since 16 and 17, did not justify including those sums of money in the 18 budget. I spoke quite a bit about it in the past few meetings. I believe that these lines still need to be adjusted. Why do they need to be adjusted? Because what happens is you, as a Southeast taxpayer, end up paying more taxes in order for us to build up a fund balance. The fund balance that we now have is at 1.9 million approximately. The fund balance is something that is used it's a rainy day fund, or as in a prior meeting stated, our piggy bank. But as a piggy bank or a rainy day fund, what happens is when you have these lines and money in the lines that you don't use, that you are paying taxes on, what then happens is that fund balance grows. So the rainy day fund grows, but who determines when the rainy day comes? Because you, as a taxpayer, are paying for this. It's not like the bank is getting, the piggy bank is getting more full because you're not paying. So my suggestion was not to, initially it was, to take a really hard look at the budget. But if we're going to grow the piggy bank, we don't need to grow it as much as I believe this budget will do. In effect, by next year, absent some real calamity, we're going to probably have 2.2 or 2.3 million or more in it. And also take into account the fact that when we're doing this budget, what we've historically done to ensure that the shortfall in our fund balance, which is sometimes called a surplus, which is sometimes termed our reserve, it's called the fund balance. What happens with that fund balance is that we're permitted to use parts of it to supplement shortfalls. Well, in fact, those shortfalls have been, Tony has in the past, 890,000 in the past 6 years, used it. But in effect, this year, we're using 57,000. But since we still have a lot of that fat in the budget, the 57,000 is, I mean, it's going to be augmented by probably another million. So really what I'm saying is that I don't believe that this board is justified in still hitting a target of the cap in order to build up a fund balance that is now 1.9 million. There are things that we can do to reduce some of the expenses. It's not cutting anything. So let's make sure that we all understand it's not cutting. What it is that reducing lines that historically have not been used, that revenue has not, those expenses have not been incurred, and also recognizing the fact that understated revenues. So as Tony had explained, being conservative, he understates revenues and he overstates expenses. And that gives you that cushion. Well, what I'm proposing and what I have proposed is that we don't make that cushion so cushy, make it less, because we have been successful in establishing a fund balance that exceeds what is recommended by New York State, which is 10% of our budget, which is 1.8 million. Probably by next year, that may be 2.2 or 2.3 million. So I cannot vote for this budget because I think we could have done better. And how I think we could have done better is to save you out there, Southeast taxpayers, monies that could be better served by being in your banks, earning interest for you individually, because our 1.9 million right now is earning monies. It is helping us with our bond, the fact that we have a good bond rating, et cetera. But the point is the time has come now not to do that, not to increase your taxes to the amount that we are, because remember, you're still paying for the garbage. So on that basis, I don't think we took the hard look. I will be voting no.
Of course, I respectfully disagree, and I'm not going to argue because I understand all the points. Again, going back, when I got here 6 years ago, the town had $96,000 in the bank. I considered it bankrupt because $96,000 when you got a $15 million budget is not much money at all. Over the past 6 years, we've built it up to $1.9 million. Over the past 15 years, the town budget had a surplus of well over $3 million. So we're a long way from what a maximum was. I am super conservative. Some people think ultra conservative. I do underestimate revenues because you're never guaranteed you're going to get the same number next year. It got Putnam County in real big trouble, which I pointed out. 5 years of 0% increases, which is kind of what we're speaking of this evening. I don't agree with that type of funding. And after 5 years, 2 years later, there's a 40% increase. With the tax, the way the state does it now with the tax cap, once you remove monies from the budget, whether it's $1, $100, I have a line that was pointed out, $500 for seminars that I didn't use last year or the year before. Now, next year, if I took it out and I wanted to go next year, then I wouldn't have the money. So I leave it there. And again, when I got here, here's the level of these, not the spending, but the budget lines. I've held them steady because they were there. I've assumed, I've cut back on certain lines and chose not to do others. Could we do better? Yes. But if we cut, or whatever we do, if you don't use the word cut, whatever term you want to use it, once it's removed from the budget, and I want to put it back, or we want to put it back in, that will now affect the tax cap. And then when we need it, and you remove it, it's not there to use. So it's just she balances her budget at home, I balance mine, but she's got more money than me, so I think I'm going to go with her side.
Oh, I don't know about that, Tony. I don't know about that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, I had made a concrete, I don't think we really discussed anything very concrete, and I think that's a shame for the public. And I think we are a really transparent board, but I never heard any particular concrete suggestions. My concrete suggestion was to eliminate benefits for part-time elected officials. I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to ask for it again next year. That would save us right now $80,000, but up to $120,000. I agree with Tony in that I don't think we can afford at this stage to cut lines, especially, I believe, health insurance, Tony, was it up 12% this year?
This year.
Something like that?
Yes.
Was 12%. So I don't want to get us into trouble where we do have to break the tax cap because we've cut too much. For example, I do want people to know, and I've said this before, that garbage is going to go up about $69 a year, and yet our town taxes will only go up $3.50 for the average home. I think that's right.
69, did you say? What number?
69 for garbage,
69.
$3.50. So, yes, I know everyone would rather have the $3.50 in their pocket, but I don't think we're quite at the stage where we should be cutting lines. And as I said, I didn't hear anything concrete, and my concrete example was not taken. So I will be voting yes on this budget. I think Tony does a great job. We can look at it really carefully next year, go line by line. I will again propose cutting benefits for part-time elected officials, and I will be voting yes tonight. So
I just want to make sure that everyone knows that I did go through one of the meetings, I did go through the lines. I didn't go through every line.
Right.
Because it wasn't, at that point in time, you could have made this meeting last hours and hours.
Right.
But I
But-
did. And
Yes,
everyone,
but I
and
didn't-
everyone on the board had an opportunity to sit with me and go over each and one of the lines that I had. So it wasn't just 80,000, it was a lot more. And in total, it was quite a bit more, which is why I'm saying that what we have is probably, at the end of the day, I could probably conservatively say that we could save somewhere between 300 and 400,000, and also the fact that the revenues are understated. So I did go through by line, not at this meeting, but anyone out there had an opportunity to access me, particularly any members of the board. As far as what Tony was saying is once something comes out of a line, it can't get back in, I spoke to the accountant about that. Sure it can, because it can get back in because it's a budget, it's a living, breathing thing. But the fact is, using this on a very small level, Tony's $500 for seminars, he hasn't gone on them, and if he wanted to go on a seminar, certainly, there is enough. What are we doing part of tonight? What are we doing? We're doing budget transfers. I mean, so this isn't something that is a static, you can never get it. So please don't think Tony would never be able to get his $500 back.
no, you can get it back,
Of course.
but that can break the tax cap. That's what I'm
Well,
talking about.
that's why you have budget transfers, and that's why you have the rainy day piggy bank.
Right.
You see, that's the point. And everyone out there, when we continue to build up the piggy bank, and we don't use the piggy bank, you're still paying a lot of taxes building up that piggy bank. And when you do a budget, it's not using the blueprint and just copying what you had. It's saying, okay, let's look at the big picture with our economy. What's happening with the economy? How about this? Oh gosh, look at those fellas right there. We're now going to have more revenue because they may be able to build that new logistics center. Or how about the fact that initially what Tony had said was that we had to worry in 2020 about not getting revenues from parking because of Metro North, but then last meeting, something like that is going to be negotiated. So you look to the future. You don't say, you say, okay, fine, let's look at the National Weather Service and see whether we need all that salt. I had suggested that the monies that we hadn't used for supplies this year be used this year instead of putting the same amount in, but that'll build up the fund balance. Well, terrific. But remember, it's your monies. These monies don't just, appear, but these are your monies.
I mean, for just an example, when you said, Tony doesn't use his $500 for seminars.
Yeah.
But a perfect example of when we'll need that money is we have a new town board member who's been elected, who will be going up to Albany, and we will be paying for them to take
Absolutely.
important.
No two ways
so
about
that
it.
doesn't happen often.
But that's Tony,
Right.
so you're saying that new town board member, that's going to be something that comes out of Tony's?
Not necessarily, but
Okay.
it is something that, and there are seminars that come up and things that people want to attend.
Is it
but-
in the budget though, right now? It has to be.
Yes.
It's in the budget.
Right.
So what I'm saying though, is that it's not just Tony going on a
Cruise.
on a seminar. It's not. What it is it's more. And every dollar that we budget, that we don't use, that builds up the fund balance, is money that the taxpayer pays. So we basically are using a target. Here is the target. We want to be at the tax cap. So let's get that money, because if we don't use it, it'll just go into the fund balance. What I'm suggesting to you is I agree. The fund balance is not something that we should erode, but it's not something that we have to increase so high or so much or augment so much, because we don't need that, and we have a responsibility to the taxpayers. That's what I'm saying. So just to continue to do this and continue to grow it and grow it and grow it, contrary to what is the custom or policy or what we've been told by New York State. I mean, New York State says something. I don't know when we had 3 million or 4 million, whatever the heck it is. What was the policy then? My understanding was apparently one of these years, New York State said, you're growing that fund balance too much, because they are watchdogs of the tax money. That's what I'm saying.
Unfortunately for us, we haven't been cited yet for having too much. And one town, as a matter of fact, we're around 12%. I checked with one, they were at 22%.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
The bottom line, I'm more of like a Depression era baby. I'm not that old, but I act like that. And I just treat things differently. Next year when I prepare the budget, I'll kind of look at it, but I still won't cut quite the way Liz has pointed out this evening, but I'll look at it a little bit more carefully. But again, we're going to meet the tax cap, and the only reason I chose to go over the tax cap, which really started this whole rhubarb, was the fact that I was advised that the garbage district was in the tax cap. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this discussion, maybe. I don't know. Time will tell.
And people should realize too, next year, it's not in the tax cap, but because the library renovations and addition passed, that will be a pass along as well.
I think that's
to the
19
public.
though. It's going to be 18 to 19.
Yeah.
Right. It's not going to be 18.
Not this, yes,
Evans?
19.
Well, I looked at the budget just like everybody else did. I found on my own about 500,000. That, because basically I was just looking to see what we could cut in regards to the garbage contract and the increase in the health insurance. And I met with Liz on the side, and I probably discussed the budget offline with her more than I did with anybody else. I called you, Tony, as well, and we discussed. So I'm going to vote in favor of the budget tonight, but I do agree with Liz. I know that there's still room there that we can trim the fat, and we don't even have to touch benefits for part-time, employees or nothing like that.
Not employees, part-time elected officials.
Elected officials, there's still plenty of money in there. But the only thing I mainly disagree with you, Tony, is that when I do budgets at work, we have variances. This year, I had $10,000 in there. I didn't use the money. I take it out. Next year, then all of a sudden, I need $2,500. It's just an explained variance, and then we put it back in. So I think, like Liz said before, it's a living document. We can adjust it, and just because we take some stuff out this year doesn't mean that we're going to screw things up for the following year or whatever. We just constantly take a look at it. Again, looking at it independently, we could probably find $1 million in there easily to adjust, but we're not going to do that. I'll pass it this year, and then next year we'll take a look at it again, and if we have to really tighten the belt next year, that's what we'll do.
I think what I'd like to say too is, we don't really have a lot of you out there, Southeast taxpayers, coming in and weighing on it. And I know when you look at this budget, it looks like a headache. But when it's really not that difficult to comprehend and to look at and to understand, and anyone that would want to come up and ask about it, because we just, up here on the board, we're responsible for your money. So I would love to see more participation by our residents and say, maybe they think it's okay to continue to pay money to build up our bank. But, who's gonna be the one that determines when that money is used? But it would be great if we could have more participation, because the bottom line is, you, the Southeast residents, the people who live here, the people who pay the taxes, you're the ones that should be weighing in on this. I mean, we're taking our own positions. I think differently than Tony and Lynn. Edwin and I were thinking about the same, but he just explained what he said. I'd just like to hear more residents out there. I want to hear more people. I want to hear what they think. So next year, you know, in, let's say, September, after everyone comes back from summer vacation, nice tans or whatever you do, you know, talk to us about it. Let us know what you think. Weigh in more. That would be a great way for this board and our new member, John Lord, to be able to understand and comprehend what you really think.
Okay, well, going back to way back when before I got here, it was bad. I think we're in good shape now, and we're going to move forward. So we'll take a roll call vote.
Councilman Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilman Cullen is absent. Councilwoman Eckhart.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hudak.
No.
Supervisor Hay.
Yes. Okay, number 8, resolution certiorari settlement, Pomona Development, 44-1-39.6, 55-1-39.2-3 and 4, 55-2-39.5. Okay, I'm going to try to simplify this. Let's see how I can do it. Okay, resolved that the town board of the town of Southeast does hereby accept the recommendations of the professional advisors and authorize the town attorney to execute a stipulation of settlement, consent judgment, and/or order of consent in accordance with said recommendations for the following. Now, the petitioner in each case is Pomona Development LLC. The tax ID number is 55.-1-39.2, year 2016, assessment 229, settled 192,600. It's always the same, Pomona Development. Tax ID number 55.-1-39.2, 2017, 229,700, settled assessment $207,600. On lot 55.-1-39.3, 2016, went from 116,300, settled 79,200. On 55.-1-39.3, 2017, 116,300 was the assessment, settled $94,200. Pomona, I'm sorry about that. Okay, 55.-1-39.4, 2016, 162,800 to 125,700. 55.-1-39.4, 2017, 169,800, settled $140,700. 55.-1-39.5, 2016, 237,200, settled $200,100. 55.-1-39.5, 2017, 237,200, settled $215,100. 55.-1-39.6, 2016, 139,500, settled amount $102,400. 55.-1-39.6, 2017, 139,500, 117,400. Thanks God it's not Morse code. Terrible. And to be further resolved that the town attorney is hereby authorized and directed to execute any and all stipulations, consent orders, and other documents necessary to reflect the foregoing settlement. So moved for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 9, resolution Ace Indigo, performance bond, erosion and sediment control bonds. Now therefore be resolved that the bond amount for the following project is set as follows. Project name, Ace Indigo. Bond amount, all site improvements, $325,400. Erosion and sediment control, $27,400. And be further resolved, that a certified copy of this resolution shall be transmitted by the town clerk to the planning board secretary and building inspector forthwith. So move for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
We just pretty much discussed the supervisor's report. We've got one more month, and except for the few lines, which have been corrected in next year's budget, I think we're in good shape. Recognition of public. Doesn't matter. Now it's anything.
Dennis Santucci, 5 Shady Lane, Brewster, New York. A couple of months ago, I was in here, and regarding a letter from Mike Levine, dated July 12, 2017, addressed to Tony Hay. It's regarding it's regarding the motor crash track at 7 Shady Lane, which is my neighbor. This fella has a motor cross track, and he rides motocross within feet of the property line. My question to the board was, in that letter, it states that Mike Levine, the building inspector, is not going to enforce section 134-3E of the town code, and it seems to me to be a selective enforcement. I asked the board if they had any comments or if they would help me out on this situation. It was a couple of months ago. Has the board responded to Mike Levine's letter?
I understand that you may be in front of the ZBA with interpretation.
Yes, I am.
The town board will be waiting for that interpretation.
Well, actually, that's another point here. Did the board disagree with Mike Levine's response? Right? The point here is, why is it that a property owner, myself, has to spend my money to enforce a town law? Board member Hudak told us at a couple of months ago at the meeting that the town enforces all of its laws. Meanwhile, the building inspector is clearly saying he's not going to enforce law 134-3E. So I've been asking the board over 4 years now to help me out, and I've been ignored for 4 years.
And
Is the board planning to help?
As you know, there's numerous letters going back and forth between attorneys on this matter, as you are well aware. And until we get clarification on those aspects of it, and you get interpretation from the Zoning Board of Appeals, we are not discussing it.
Mr. Hay, I am in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's my money in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
By your choice.
I'm asking this board formally, can you please give me a response? Why are you not acknowledging Mr. Levine's letter?
Mr. Levine represents the town as regards zoning enforcement. He has rendered an opinion that is being discussed amongst attorneys who are the ones that guide the town as far as what enforcement, if any, should be taken. So right now, according to what I have heard, the attorneys are still conversing regarding this matter. Unfortunately, this board is not going to be in a position to make any determinations without the guidance of the professionals that they rely on. So right now, we don't have that. I believe that you're before the zoning board as far as an interpretation of the code, which is what their function is. And everyone has the right to legal redress under those circumstances. If the zoning board enters into an interpretation that appears to be favorable to you, and that is what occurs, and there is any feedback from our respective attorneys and your attorney, if an attorney is involved, then we can do whatever it is that we are empowered to do by virtue of our code. Up to that point, I for one know that I would not be in a position of trying to determine a legal point without having input from our attorneys who are working on this. And I'm sure you wouldn't want to do anything without hearing from your attorney. Unfortunately, we cannot give any, or at least I know I'm not going to give any advice regarding interpretations or anything else unless I hear from the experts.
It's pretty simple. There's a town law in place. It's in place today. The law says you cannot ride the motorcycle within 100 feet of a property line. Mr. Levine is clear right out saying, I will not enforce that law. So, it's very simple. So if the police officer doesn't want to enforce the speed limit, it's clear, and the town board is okay with that? Come on.
I don't believe that it is simplistic as he just said. He's not going to enforce it. There are reasons behind it, which is why I'm saying to you, we are not, at least once again, I don't want to speak for the whole board, but I know I am in no position of saying yay or nay without having legal guidance from the attorneys. It's a fact of at least my life. I can't make a determination. If something's wrong with my health I just don't make my own determination. I go to a doctor. I listen to the doctor. I might not follow what the doctor says.
So the-
I might die or I might live, but I listen to my doctor.
So the taxpayers that have town laws have to go to the zoning board to get them enforced, or to get interpretations.
Yes, sir,
Have to
they do.
spend thousands and thousands of dollars to have an interpretation of the law that exists, because the town police, Mr. Levine, will not enforce it, the town building inspector. The other, I have one more comment. You guys had a budget crisis, you guys been talking about budget, and that's all wonderful. I guess you came out with the fairest budget you can come out with. But here again, you have special counsel, Joe DiPaolo was assigned to 1, 3, 5, and 7 Shady Lane to look at any wrongdoings with what's going on there at 1, 3, 5, and 7 Shady Lane. Meanwhile, in that same letter that I just handed to you, Mr. DiPaolo himself is out seeking affidavits on behalf of Mr. Heineke, a property owner. Why is the town attorney, with a $275,000 budget, out there seeking seeking affidavits for a private property owner?
Didn't you ask
guys
him,
talked about,
didn't you ask him to recuse himself?
excuse me?
Didn't you ask that he be recused because of his
I
association with
said Joe
you?
DiPaolo. You appointed Joe
Oh.
DiPaolo to investigate anything on 1, 3, 5, and 7 Shady Lane. You did this about, I think it was 2015, and he's still the special attorney. Meanwhile, on behalf of Mr. Heineke, if somebody's accusing a property owner of doing something wrong, the burden of proof should be on that property owner. But the town is going out of their way to get affidavits on behalf of Mr. Heineke
what-
to prove that,
That's
Mr.
not-
Hay, it's all in that letter.
It's, first of all, you're wrong. What
No.
what anyone does on either side of something that's gonna end up getting litigated, like I say, you're in front of the zoning board of appeals now, you need to know both sides of the story before an interpretation can be made. You don't agree with that, I'm telling you right now, if you'd done something different way back when, you wouldn't have to spend a nickel. But you chose to go a battle of going through attorneys, and unfortunately, you're costing us to go through attorneys, and that's where it is. And as far as I'm concerned, this discussion is over.
Well, Mr. Hay, I'm sorry, but every time I've asked this board since 2013
And we just
to help
told you,
me
sir,
out,
we're not gonna respond to
so I'm
you
not
until
allowed
you're
to finish
done.
speaking? That's fine.
Until
Thank
you're
you.
done with your
Discussion is
attorneys.
over. Can I have my letter back?
Oh, I gave it to the town clerk. You can have it back. Enjoy your evening. Anyone else from the public? Seeing none?
For the town board?
Yep.
I do have something really fast. I went to a meeting the other night on the Beacon Line Rail Trail. It is going to be, it's pretty remarkable. It's the MTA working with the state of New York. And there is going to be a rail trail, which is the old Maybrook line in Southeast. It will go all the way to the Canadian border, starts in the Bowery in New York. It's a
When are you
very...
gonna start pedaling?
It's a very exciting project and is supposed to be completed in 2020, which is really ambitious. And while we're on the MTA subject, the Prospect Hill Bridge should be totally removed by tomorrow night. They started taking that down. So, but the rail trail is very exciting.
bridge?
So, the Prospect Hill.
How did you go from
It's MTA.
Canada to Brewster?
I just did it, so, because I know.
I've taken pictures, and by the way, that progress is being posted on the town's webpage. I've taken some photos, and if it's down further, I'll take more. And Peaceable Hill is also being worked on as well. The water tank is probably 75% assembled. So if you want to know about Prospect Hill Bridge, and you want to know about Prospect Hill and, what did I just say?
Peaceful Hill.
Peaceful
The
Hill,
water
Prospect Hill, and Peaceful Hill, I had two hills mixed up there. It's all on our website and being updated as we go.
And this is the old Maybrook line, and we'll get a link on the website.
I think
so-
there's already one there.
Okay, great.
I know
Because
that,
it's,
that's been, I believe it's already there.
Patch had a good
Right.
article on it.
so,
Say that again?
The Patch had a good article on it.
Yeah.
Maybe we can,
Yeah.
Okay, in
Use their
closing, hopefully, unless anyone else, we're just wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving and best of luck.
Happy and healthy.
Is there a motion?
happy Thanksgiving, and I'll make a motion that we close tonight's meeting.
Second, by,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Thank
you all
you.
for coming.